The time is early 2026, Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. Once a bustling metropolis, today the city's buildings stand only as skeletons. In some places there are piles of charred ash, in others walls are riddled with bullet holes. After nearly 3 long years, the government has moved its offices from the Red Sea coastal city of Port Sudan back to this city of ruins. Prime Minister Kamil Idris has declared 2026 as Sudan's Year of Peace. He is calling this the government of hope. But is this hope truly real? Or is it merely a mirage? Statistics tell a different story. According to the United Nations, Sudan is currently facing the world's largest humanitarian crisis. Approximately 150,000 people have lost their lives in this civil war. Nearly 12 million people have lost their homes and become displaced. Why is Africa's third largest country burning in the power struggle between two generals? Why is the bottle of soda or soft drink in your hand indirectly fueling the logistics of this war? And why are international power players fueling the destruction instead of stopping it? Which direction does Sudan's future actually lie? Towards division like Libya or anarchy like Somalia? We will try to find the answers to all these questions in today's episode. The year was 2019. Omar al-Bashir, the dictator or Iron Man who had crushed Sudan under his boot for 30 years, fell through a massive mass uprising. There was a festive mood on the streets of Khartoum, the scent of democracy in the air. Ordinary people thought their fortunes were finally about to change. But they had no clue that through the fall of one autocrat, they had essentially given rise to 2 even more terrifying monsters. After Bashir's fall, 2 generals stepped onto the stage to fill the power vacuum, men whose hands have now brought Sudan to the brink of destruction. The first is the country's army chief and de facto leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. The second is his deputy and the head of the notorious paramilitary force, the Rapid Support Forces or RSF, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, better known to the world as Hemedti. Initially, the relationship between these 2 generals was almost brotherly. In 2019, they stood shoulder to shoulder to oust Bashir. Then, in October 2021, while a process was underway to form an interim civilian government, Burhan and Hemedti jointly staged another military coup. Removing the civilian prime minister, they forcibly took over the country's governance. Their goal was singular: to divide Sudan's power and resources between themselves. But as the proverb goes, 2 tigers cannot live in one forest. Similarly, the existence of 2 armies in one country is impossible. The cracks in Burhan and Hemedti's friendship began to show primarily over an existential crisis. Driven by international pressure and internal political equations, a proposal was made. Hemedti's massive RSF, numbering about 100,000 members, must be integrated into the main army. This is where the trouble began. Army Chief Burhan wanted the RSF to be brought under the army within the next 2 years. A specialized, independent, and powerful parallel force is always a threat to state security. Burhan essentially represented Sudan's traditional elite class and military establishment. To him, Hemedti was an outsider. On the other hand, Hemedti was a man of a completely different breed. He was not a general who graduated from a military academy. His rise was as a leader of the notorious Janjaweed militia in Darfur, accused of genocide and ethnic cleansing in 2003. Hemedti knew that if his force merged with the army, he would have no power base left. He demanded that this integration process require at least 10 years. Essentially, he was playing for time to solidify his position. Of course, behind this conflict lay not just military reasons but massive economic interests. General Hemedti is the undisputed lord of most of Sudan's gold mines and the gold trade. Allegations exist that he has amassed billions by smuggling this gold to Dubai or the UAE. With this immense wealth, he equipped the RSF with weapons more modern than the armies. Conversely, General Burhan and the army control Sudan's large agricultural projects and state-owned enterprises. In short, this was not just a battle of egos. It was a battle to capture Sudan's economy. This pent-up tension exploded on the morning of April 15, 2023. On a Ramadan morning, the skies of Khartoum suddenly shook with the sound of gunfire. While there is debate over who fired the first shot, within moments, all of Sudan turned into an inferno. At the start of the war, The RSF used their speed and light pickup trucks, known as technicals, to capture large parts of Khartoum, the presidential palace, and the airport. On the other hand, although Burhan's army had the air force and heavy artillery, they became helpless against the RSF's guerrilla warfare in the city's narrow alleys. Forced to retreat, General Burhan and his government moved their offices to Port Sudan on the Red Sea coast. For nearly 2 years, Khartoum remained under RSF control. But in March 2025, the war took a dramatic turn. The army reorganized and, through a massive counteroffensive, recaptured the Omdurman area of Khartoum and the radio and television headquarters. This was a huge psychological victory for the army. However, Sudan has paid a steep price for this victory. The lust for power of these two generals has brought Sudan to a point where its very survival as a state is in question. Burhan thinks he is the protector of the state, and Hemedti presents himself as the representative of the marginalized, but at the end of the day, both have stained their hands with the blood of the Sudanese people. The question is, can this battle of egos between two generals be solved at the negotiation table, or will it end only with the fall of one? While the modern world's media is focused on Ukraine or Gaza, one of the century's most horrific humanitarian disasters is unfolding in this African nation. The United Nations, without mincing words, has declared the situation in Sudan as the world's largest humanitarian crisis and the largest displacement crisis. The statistics are not just numbers. Each is a long sigh. Since the war began on April 15, 2023, approximately 150,000 people have lost their lives, but this is only the official count. The number of bodies buried under rubble or desert sand could be several times higher. About 12 million people have been forced to flee their homes. Imagine, nearly 1/4 of a country's population is living the life of a refugee today. They have no shelter, no food. Now hunger has become a bigger enemy than bullets. The World Food Programme, WFP, reports that about 24 million people in Sudan are suffering from acute food insecurity. That means half of the country's population does not know if they will get their next meal. Both the RSF and the army are using food and aid as weapons of war. They are blocking aid trucks from entering opposition areas. Reports state that about 80% of the country's emergency food kitchens have shut down. This has created an artificial famine. Especially in shelters like the Zamzam camp, children are wasting away and dying from malnutrition. The ugliest face of this war is visible in the western region of Darfur. Here, the war is no longer limited to a struggle for power. It has morphed into horrific ethnic cleansing. RSF fighters, who are primarily of Arab descent, are targeting non-Arab or African indigenous populations, specifically the Masalit community. Human Rights Watch and the US State Department have directly labeled these events in Sudan as genocide. The exact same thing happened in Darfur in 2003. The RSF was born from those notorious Janjaweed militias who carried out the genocide back then. Today, 2 decades later, those same killers are walking the old path in new uniforms. In the city of El Geneina, thousands were killed simply because of their ethnic identity. The RSF's goal is clear: to cleanse Darfur of its non-Arab population and turn it into an Arab-dominated region. Recently, they captured El Fasher, the last major city in Darfur. About 250,000 people were trapped there, subjected to indiscriminate slaughter. The RSF built earthen walls around the city to besiege the people, ensuring no one could escape and no food could enter. The most tragic aspect is that women are being used as a tactic of war. According to reports by UNICEF and human rights organizations, RSF fighters are systematically using rape as a weapon. From 12-year-old children to elderly women, no one is spared. Despite seeing the horror of this war, the international community remains largely silent. While billions of dollars in aid packages and media coverage are seen for Ukraine, the funding basket for Sudan's forgotten war is nearly empty. Hospitals are destroyed, there is no medicine, no doctors. The injured are dying slowly due to a lack of treatment. The city of El Fasher in Darfur was once a symbol of coexistence and diversity, but today, due to the RSF's ethnic cleansing, it has turned into a desolate ghost town. And right after this genocide, the international community has appeared with a new proposal for a humanitarian ceasefire. This raises a tough question. Why did this ceasefire proposal come after the destruction of El Fasher? Why not before? There is a proverb in Sudanese politics. If you see a poor man eating chicken, you must understand. Either the man is sick or the chicken is sick. Similarly, behind this post-genocide ceasefire proposal lies a deep political malady. Analysts believe that when the RSF was violating international law, capturing hospitals, or refusing safe corridors, the world was silent. And now that the destruction is complete, the ceasefire is essentially an attempt to give the RSF breathing room and political legitimacy. Is this truly humanitarianism or a blueprint for redrawing the map? The question remains, is the responsibility for this genocide solely on Sudan's two generals or also on the world leaders who remained silent spectators? When AK-47 bullets fly in the arid deserts of Sudan, someone in a supermarket in New York or London might be calmly sipping a cold bottle of soda or Coca-Cola. While there seems to be no connection between these two events, deep geopolitical analysis suggests otherwise. The soft drink, chocolate bar, or cosmetics in your hand. Key raw materials for these luxury items are indirectly fueling this brutal civil war in Sudan. There are resources above and below Sudan's soil that are not allowing this war to stop. To sustain the general's power struggle, vast amounts of money are needed, and that money comes from two main sources. One is gum arabic, and the other is gold. Many of you may not know that an essential ingredient in the global food and beverage industry is gum arabic. It is a sap exuded from a specific type of tree called Acacia senegal. Known by the code E414, this ingredient is used to prevent sugar from settling in sodas or carbonated drinks, to maintain the texture of ice cream, to make chocolate coatings shiny, and even as a binding agent in medicines and paints. About 70 to 80% of the world's gum arabic demand is met by Sudan. Specifically, the quality of Hashab gum arabic grown in Sudan's Kordofan and Darfur regions is world-class. In the 90s, when America imposed strict sanctions on Sudan, they kept this one product exempt because without Sudan, the wheels of this industry cannot turn. Since the war began, while Sudan's institutional economy has collapsed, the gum arabic trade has not stopped. Rather, it is now a major source of revenue for the RSF. Investigations by international research organizations like PAX have revealed a grim picture. The RSF and their allied militias now control the gum arabic production routes. When farmers or traders transport this product by road, they are forced to pay hefty extortion money or tax at RSF checkpoints. In many cases, the RSF loots warehouses and smuggles the product themselves. From Sudan, this conflict gum is smuggled into neighboring Chad, South Sudan, and Egypt. Once there, it is mixed with local products and rebranded. Consequently, on paper, the names Sudan or RSF no longer appear on it. Then, European giants like Nexira or Aland and Robert, who are the world's largest gum arabic suppliers, buy this product and deliver it to multinational companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, or Nestlé. Although these companies claim they buy ethically, they carefully avoid this dark side of the supply chain. If gum arabic is the soft money of the war, gold is the hard cash. General Hemedti and his family are the undeclared emperors of Sudan's gold business. Massive gold mines in Darfur and Kordofan are directly under RSF control. There are allegations that the RSF uses the United Arab Emirates to sell this gold on the international market. Transported by small planes or by road, this gold is first taken to Chad or Libya, from where it travels to the gold souks of Dubai. According to UN reports, Hemedti has earned billions of dollars through this illegal gold trade, and this money is buying modern anti-aircraft missiles, drones, and armored vehicles used to kill the ordinary people of Sudan. This ruthless economic cycle is one of the main reasons for the failure of ceasefire talks. As long as money from gum arabic and gold keeps filling the generals' pockets, they have no need to stop the war, and unknowingly the world continues to pour fuel on the fire of this war through their daily consumption. Looking at the map of Sudan, you won't just see a country burning, you will see a massive chessboard where the moves are being made by outside nations. The teenager running with a grenade launcher on the streets of Khartoum probably doesn't know that the weapon in his hand came from a country thousands of miles away. Sudan is no longer just a civil war zone. It has turned into a theater for an international proxy war. The strategic location on the Red Sea, the flow of the Nile, and the gold mines underground. These three elements have placed Sudan at the center of a dogfight between global superpowers. The most controversial and discussed character in this war is the United Arab Emirates, UAE. According to reports by the Sudanese army and UN experts, the main patron of General Hemedti's RSF forces is the UAE. Allegations exist that under the guise of humanitarian aid, the Emirates is smuggling weapons across the Sudan border. The smuggling route is highly strategic. Weapons are first flown to the Amjaras airport in Sudan's neighboring country, Chad. A nominal hospital and aid center have been opened there. But allegations persist that cargo planes are bringing missiles, anti-aircraft guns, and drones instead of medicine. Then, crossing the Chadian border, those weapons reach the RSF in Darfur by truck. In exchange, gold mined from RSF-controlled areas is smuggled to Dubai's markets. In essence, it is a gold for guns cycle. Although the UAE has repeatedly denied these allegations, satellite images and British and American intelligence reports say otherwise. On the other hand, Iran has entered the field to turn the tide of the war. At the beginning of the war, when the army's condition was fragile and Khartoum was almost lost, Iran's Mohajer 6 drones became General Burhan's trump card. The precise attacks by these drones enabled the army to halt the RSF's advance and recapture Omdurman. Iran is providing this assistance to the Sudanese army to expand its influence in the Red Sea, which has become a cause for concern for the Western world and Saudi Arabia. Sudan's northern neighbor Egypt has directly taken the side of the army, SAF, in this war. Behind this lies the question of survival. Egypt's lifeline is the Nile, and the river flows through Sudan. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi never wants an unreliable militia leader like Hemedti to come to power on his southern border. Cairo believes that if Sudan fractures, or if the RSF comes to power, Egypt will become weak in the Nile water-sharing agreement with Ethiopia. Therefore, the Egyptian Air Force and intelligence agencies have been providing logistical and strategic support to General Burhan since the beginning. Russia's role here is the most mysterious and opportunistic. Vladimir Putin's private army, the Wagner Group, now known as the Afrika Korps, supported the RSF at the start of the war. Russian mercenaries were deployed to secure Hemedti's gold mines. This gold helped Russia cover the costs of the Ukraine war. Through Libyan rebel general Khalifa Haftar, Russia supplied fuel and weapons to the RSF. But politics can flip in an instant. Recently, lured by the prospect of a naval base on the Red Sea, Russia is now improving relations with the Sudanese army as well. In short, Russia is using both sides for its own interests. Meanwhile, the role of America and Europe here is largely ineffective. On one hand, they impose sanctions for human rights violations. On the other, they maintain business relations with the countries that are the RSF's main arms suppliers. The swift action seen for Ukraine is limited only to statements in the case of Sudan. Analysts call this selective outrage. The question is this interference by foreign powers going to turn Sudan into another Libya or Syria? Or will the people of Sudan be able to stop this proxy war? Although Prime Minister Kamil Idris has declared 2026 the year of peace, reality suggests Sudan is now passing through the ultimate phase of an existential crisis. Analyzing recent events and historical context reveals that a terrible destination awaits Sudan: the legitimacy trap and the partition of the state. The pressure for a humanitarian ceasefire currently coming from the international community may seem innocent on the surface, but inside, it holds the seeds of breaking Sudan apart. History bears witness that in Western Sahara, Libya, or South Sudan, ceasefires did not bring peace. Rather, they were the first step toward partition. Just as the UN's Operation Lifeline Sudan in 1989 accelerated the secession of South Sudan under the guise of humanitarian aid, the exact same blueprint is being drawn in 2026. Do you know where the problem lies? Whenever the army and the RSF are seated at the same table through international mediation, The RSF is indirectly elevated from a rebel militia to the status of a parallel government. A unified state cannot have two governments, but when both parties sign a ceasefire agreement, the RSF gains legitimacy. As a result, Sudan is essentially moving towards the Libya model, specifically an internationally recognized government based in Port Sudan covering the east and north, and a parallel government of the RSF covering Darfur and Kordofan in the west and south. The result will be one country, two armies, two central banks, and two foreign policies. Meaning, even if the map remains one, Sudan will no longer function as a state. Meanwhile, if this legitimacy trap or political recognition succeeds, Sudan will veer towards a situation like Somalia. The RSF is not a disciplined force, it is a coalition of looters and mercenaries. Their control over power or territory means there will be no law, only the rule of warlords. The RSF is already trying to change Sudan's demographics using foreign mercenaries. The third possibility is a protracted and unresolved war like Syria. But in Sudan's case, it would be even more horrific. Because here, attempts are being made to form a so-called parallel government. The same side holding the pen to sign the treaty is holding the gun to commit genocide. The greatest tragedy is that there is no effective transparency from the international community to avoid this situation. The peace talks happening in Jeddah or elsewhere are taking place behind closed doors. Keeping the Sudanese people in the dark, foreign powers are determining their fate. Analysts say this ceasefire is not primarily to save the state of Sudan, but an international project to break Sudan's geographical integrity into pieces. Sudan's fate now hangs by a thread. The government's return to Khartoum may be a symbolic victory, but for the 5 million people who fled this city, the road to return is still blocked. History does not forgive those who auction off their motherland. If the people of Sudan cannot stop this ceasefire trap and foreign prescriptions, 2026 will be the year Sudan is wiped from the map. A new border wall may rise on the banks of the Nile, burying thousands of years of history beneath it. Standing in the modern era, will the world watch another genocide and state partition unfold? Or will it stand in support of the Sudanese people's demand for one country, one army? Only time will tell.